Hello, everyone. I hope you're well and welcome back. I'm so excited to talk about this experience that I had this past weekend, and so I'm just going to get into it. I, 2 years ago, had my first ayahuasca experience in Costa Rica, and if you guys are interested in that episode, definitely it's there. And it would have been 2 years ago from now, and it's about ayahuasca. But in that experience, I went to Costa Rica thinking I'm going to dig into my shadows, as everybody probably thinks when they go into plant medicine. But for me, it was something totally different. I actually, that very first night, received myself in many forms. So I talk about, first, I believe it was all the animals that were coming through me, and me like being those animals, and that looked like moving like the animals and seeing like the animals and exploring like the animals. And then also my higher self being, which I would say is energy, but it also has form, came down as well. That was the first time that had ever happened. And I think in that episode, I talk about how it's a very, like, physically much taller than me, much like more erect and very stiff and very long limbed. And when it comes in, I definitely know it. There's no differentiating me from it. So, I mean, there is, like, I know exactly when it's in. So, and in that episode, I talked about this hand signal that I was giving off to everyone, like kind of signaling that I'm present in that expression. And from then, I've experienced that energy in this vessel, maybe 3 or 4 times. And each time, the majority of what I feel is that it's wanting to experience what I'm experiencing in flesh. Like it feels very curious, and it's very interested in what's happening on this plane. So it's never threatening. It always feels like, even though it puts me into weird positions with my body, it feels like it's just, I guess, just, how would I say it? Like coming down to feel this vibration. Honestly, that's what it feels like. So in my calendar, I have marked this date as my birthday into myself. And I have it like set up every year to go off. And so not that I plan anything at all, but I just want to know, like, that this, as a reminder, this is when I first felt myself. And basically, let's see. So the date is March 25th. And last year we were just about to move to our new house, or to our house in the mountains. And on that day, I never thought about it, but today I look back, and on that day, I was trying on wedding dresses for the first time. So interesting that it happened on that day, that I was like moving forward. That was like the first step in moving forward of, oh, okay, we're getting married. So this year, come around, Richard had mentioned that he wanted to go on a trip. So Richard had wanted to do a trip to Slovakia for his mom's 70th birthday. And I looked at the calendar, and I didn't have plans, but that, and I saw it, and I was like, well, maybe we're supposed to be in Europe for this birthday of mine. And we were going down that path, and we had booked tickets to go visit them during COVID that got canceled. So I was trying to, use the credit from those tickets. Well, it turned out that now, 3 years on, they don't give you a refund. They don't give you credit. So then, like, looking at the actual cost of going, kind of last minute, it was like super expensive. So we ended up not doing that, but he said, let's go anyway on a trip. And I had been like feeling Joshua Tree recently. We had never visited Joshua Tree before. We had been in the surrounding areas like Palm Springs, and also we went to Landers when we went to in the Integratron, but we didn't stop in Joshua Tree. So it's been kind of like on my radar. So I said, what about Joshua Tree? And he took it from there. He was like, okay. So he, as he always does, he kind of plans out everything. And my job is to like stock up the van with the groceries and get everybody ready to go. So he mentioned, I think before we left, that he had some surprises in store for us. And I was like, oh, okay. And right away, because Landers is only about 20 minutes from Joshua Tree, I thought maybe we're going to go back to the Integratron. But I just let it obviously be what it was. So we left on Thursday and we found this amazing, it's called BLM land that you can camp on for free because we have a Sprinter van. So we found this amazing spot and we got there just in time for sunset, and it was just magic. It was beautiful, and like the energy of the land itself felt like just really calming. So I kind of had set that intention that night that I wanted to connect with the land in Joshua Tree. And when I go to places, I don't actually, now that I think of it, I don't usually have that as my main intention. Like, for example, in Sedona, I wouldn't do it there because that energy just feels so chaotic to me that I wouldn't feel that. But because I felt such calmness in Joshua Tree, I was like, yeah, I want to ground here. I want to deeply commune with this land. So then the first surprise was the next morning he had booked a sound session with a local healer that they had this beautiful setup behind their house, which was outside on the land, and they had like mats down, and she did a beautiful sound, like breath work and sound session, and we were in the sun. It was just beautiful. And in my intention in that, I was wanting to go into the land. And what I felt in doing that was, or actually, I guess in this case saw, is all of these kind of swirling patterns. And afterwards I tried to explain it to Richard, and I was trying to tell him what the land felt like and looked like. And it was like this mixture of like going like this, of the closest thing I could think of is tapestry, because tapestries are a mixture of all these different threads that are different colors and patterns. And so it felt like this swirlingness of tapestry, and the background color was very neutral, like almost like the actual dirt of Joshua Tree. So, and I have connected when I was in Maui a few years ago, I connected with the land there, and that felt like also a tapestry. And I think I talked about it in the episode that's called something about communing with the island of Mu. So I knew that energy is not static. So yes, it is a tapestry and it is moving, and you like feeling into all of the different vibrations, and I would call it ancestral lines that form that tapestry. So I was explaining this to Richard after the meditation and saying like it was a tapestry. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like a living thing. And then, so then that day we went about like going into the national park and like experiencing, we did a few little hikes because Penny came with us on this trip, and dogs are not allowed on the hiking trails. So we did a few things. And if you're on YouTube, I'll insert some photos. But we get to this one place that is called the Cholla Cactus Garden. And we get out of the van and we're walking, amongst these cactuses, which I'll again put pictures here. And all of a sudden this cactus like leapt out at me. And what I mean by that is it literally came out of its cactus and attacked my shoe. And I was like, what? So I bent down to try to put, it was like this ball of cactus. And I went to pull it off. And then I got stung by the needles in my thumb. And the more that I tried to get away from this cactus, it was going deeper. And not only deeper into my fingers, but deeper into my shoes. So I was like, oh my God. So I'm like, Richard, help me. So he came with a stick and was like trying to get them off. And he got it enough off that I could hobble to the van and I had a tweezer and get the things out of my shoe. But the ones in my fingers, I think I actually still have one right here on the tip of my thumb. It was like, what is going on with this cactus? Like normally cactuses, they'll have needles, but they're like not, these ones I find out afterwards, they have, there's like barbs on the actual needle so they can burrow in. And the point of that is that they want to be carried away to different places to land other places or, grow other places. So these apparently are the most like, I don't know, invasive cactuses that are on the planet. And there is not one sign anywhere saying like, beware at all. So while we were out there, this other little girl started screaming because one attacked her. It was like total chaos. So, anyway, so that was interesting. And then, that night he was like, I had brought in some mushrooms for us to do. And he was like, if we're going to do mushrooms, we have to do it tonight because tomorrow night I have another surprise. And I was like, okay. So we get back to our camping site kind of early so that we could watch sunset. And, we each did 3 grams, which I've never done more than 3 grams. To me, that's like just enough to get you on your way. And I wouldn't. And I don't know, I say this, but I don't know if I mean it, but I don't know. I don't think I would do more than 3 grams without someone holding space. That's how I feel about it. But before we did this, I put protection on both of us. And I was like, because this was Richard's first experience with mushrooms. And I wanted to make sure that he felt protected as well. And me too. So, and the moment we take these mushrooms, the van doors open, it's sunset, beautiful. All of a sudden, this like gale force wind starts moving through the desert. And I'm telling you guys, like, it is like, I've never been in this kind of windstorm before. It's like the van is going to blow over. I'm like shocked that it's still holding together. So we're like, everything's closed and we have windows. So we're watching and all the dust of the desert is just like, it's just like crazy. And then of course the mushrooms set in and I'm just like, holy shit. So we have this like bed and I'm laying there. And I told him before I laid down, I wish I could lay down outside on the dirt because I want to be here. I want to be touching the land because there's something about when you do these mushrooms, oh God, nature just notches up about 10 degrees and the colors change and they're just so vibrant and you just feel everything. So here I am like feeling totally bummed that we are in this amazing place taking mushrooms and we have to stay in our capsule of the van. And I know everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. So I try to like just sit with that. And I just on the bed, I'm just looking out the window at the sunset to stay anchored and just telling myself, just breathe through it. And, Richard, then he's like, I don't feel anything. And I feel like I'm a lightweight for every kind of plant medicine. So I'm like, I'm in it. And I'm like, I'm just telling myself to just breathe because I feel like going into that, especially with all of this energy surrounding the van with this wind, I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't like hold my breath. And I kept like having to sit up and like recenter and I don't know. I feel like that goes on for a while. And finally, Richard comes and lays down and he feels like he's going to throw up. So I start holding him and like, giving my energy to him and like telling him to breathe. And he goes into this kind of like, I don't want to say shut down, but closed. Like where I feel like I'm trying to open up, he's kind of closes down and just like tries to ride the wave, basically. And I mean, this lasts for, I don't even know, maybe 3 or 4 hours. And what I realized is that everything is exactly perfect, as we all know, but the wind was showing me, what does it feel like to be part of the wind? And can I hold my center with this craziness happening all around us? And I was like telling Richard, we're in a time capsule, we're moving through space, and we're just here to hold the center. I think I know now there was some serious, what do they call, geostorms happening on that day, but I wasn't tuning into any of that. So I just was like, okay, well, this is how it's supposed to be. And my God, I have never connected with air in that way. And in this, I don't know if I've talked to you guys about this, but I started going back deep into the content of the programs that I'm going to be bringing out. And one of the modalities or directions is air. And in that modality, I have it as embody. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect, because this is exactly what I want to convey, but actually like feeling it and actually being okay with this chaos. And basically they showed me that it's so much energy. We have the power to bring through so much force and energy with our breath, with our words, with our being when you're embodied and centered in that. And it's like, can you hold it? And they were basically saying that this is the most intense that it's going to get. Can you hold this? And I was just like, okay. And like Richard laughs at me because he said I was the most hilarious this night, because I just kept saying, just breathe, just breathe. And he was like, I'm breathing. So, and I was like, I'm talking to myself. I'm just trying to get through this. And then I connected with the stars, because he put in this moon roof. Oh God, it was so amazing. Because in this moment, of course, I've felt this a few times before in the van, but the van is completely his energy. He has built that thing from scratch. Other than the actual vehicle, he's built the entire like system out, the water, the solar, the heating, the bed itself, like everything. His hands have done everything. And in that moment, I could feel just so supported in this time capsule. And I look up, and there he has created this moonroof over our bed so that I could watch the stars in this exact moment and connect with the stars. And I'm just feeling like, twice in this trip, I had these full circle moments of, wow, everything is conspired. Every choice that we've made in the last 3 years has conspired to this exact moment. And look how perfect it is. And then I told him, everything, of course, mushrooms make you so sensitive. So I'm just bawling as I'm telling him this, but I'm telling him being in this capsule with you, it's you, and it makes me want to be here, and I feel safe here. And I know that, let's say you were gone tomorrow, it wouldn't mean anything, because it's not, you wouldn't be here to hold the heart of it. And I said, going on these trips with you is, I'm traveling in your heart, because it is him. It's everything that he wants, everything he's created for the van, let's say, it's for me to feel comfortable and safe. And I feel that. How, it's so trippy to be in a time capsule that your love created for you to experience these other dimensional experiences. And yeah, I just felt so blown away. So that lasted, pretty much all night for me. He was after he went through his turbulent area, he kind of felt like he laughed and he kind of enjoyed it for maybe half an hour, and then he pulled himself right back to sobriety. So in this, I realized that to go as deep as I go, it's the total surrender. I mean, you have to totally let go of the phone, because I noticed he went right back to like scrolling on his phone. And I just released. I was like, in the times that there was nothing, I just released into that. And then when there was something, I released to that. And I just like rode the waves. And I know that not everyone is here to ride them. So I just admire that, like, he went to that sound session with me in the morning, and that he agreed to do mushrooms with me for the first time. I know he's doing it to try to get glimpses of my experience. And I mean, that's all I can ask, because I know not everyone is here to go to the depths that I feel I go to. So I hold space for that. So while he was like next to me on his phone, and it's like the most beautiful sky of the night, and it's, and the light of the phone is like, I was like, but you have to allow it. Can you allow him to be exactly where he's at? And I was like, okay, I can. And so I let it be. Okay, so then the next day, we spent the day, what did we do? There was a lot of different markets in town. So we went to some different markets. We went to a bakery. We just like we went back to the park and did a couple more hikes as well. And he's like, okay, so tonight is the second thing that I have planned for you, and I'm not going to go, but I'm going to bring you there. And I was like, what? He's like, because he says, I think it's probably way too deep for me, but I want you to experience it. And I was like, okay. So he sends me the link to this thing that he booked on Airbnb Experiences. And I'm like, okay. And as I'm reading through what it is, it was called, I wrote it down here so I could tell you guys. It was called, The Third Eye Sensory Journey. And the first thing in the description it says is, this journey is going to be a tapestry of many modalities to help you to connect with your third eye. And see, this is energy. The moment I saw the word tapestry, I knew 100 this was going to be an epic situation. Because all day I had been talking about the tapestry of the land, right? And then, I'm not kidding you guys, texting with a friend of mine that day, she sent me a book that she was reading, and it's literally was called Tapestry. And I explained to her, like, you don't know how much, like, this is the third sign that something's going to happen tonight. Because that's how energy is. Like, I brought to words what I felt. And when you do that, and like kind of like how numbers are, and when you acknowledge them, they just keep appearing. It's kind of the same way when you acknowledge spirit and say, like, I see you. And this is how I try to assimilate like something otherworldly into our language. And then they're like, okay, let me show you. Here it is, and here it is. And yes, you're on the right track. So I knew, okay, this girl, I don't know anything about this experience, but I'm going in. And so that we met her at 8:30 p.m. and her house is in Joshua Tree, or her land, but it's like the properties there's no lights, no street signs, like dirt roads. So she met us at a market in the town, and there were, I believe, 3 cars, us and 2 other cars. So there were other people coming to the session. So I jump out of the van when she pulls up, and I'm like, hey, I'm Gabrielle, and Richard booked my experience. And right away, she pulls me into this hug that I can't, okay, from now on, it's going to be really hard for me to go into this, but I'm going to do my best. So she pulled me into this embrace that felt like, I would say it took my breath away, and not only by her energy, but the way she smelled and the way she was and her light. And it's dark. Like, it's not like I couldn't even really see her face. I'm just like, she just held me there for a minute, and she was like, wow, she said something like, you have good energy, sister. And I was like, what? And let me tell you, like, she has a turban on her head, and Richard's like, holy shit, like, what did I get her into? But me, I'm like, there's like I felt like this playfulness coming from this woman. And I get back in the van, and I'm like, like, I don't know where this is going, but I'm excited about it. So we follow her to her land, and it's dark, so you can't really see anything. But we turn into her property, and all we can see is all of these Joshua trees that are lit from below with this like purple glowing light. So you can kind of see how big the property is. And we pull in, and it's this, like, there's a parking lot area, and then there's this like little blue, I guess you would call it a tiny home. And it's like sky blue, but it's like painted with butterflies and like, I don't even know, and flowers, but you can't really see. So I'm just like, okay, this is interesting. So we get out of the van, and Penny says hi to everyone, and Richard says hi to everyone. And then, okay, leave him in the van, and I go into her tiny house. And, right when we walk in, there's like all these different mattresses or mats with like pillows and stuff. And she says to pick one. And right when you walk in, she has like set up these crystal bowls around there's a fireplace right in the middle, and all of her crystal sound session bowls are there. And then there were 2 mats in that area. And then in the area to the right, so it looked like a separate room, there were 4 mats. So 4 of the other people that came with us, I sat down, I was in first, so I picked the one in front of the bowls to the left. And the rest of the 4 people all went into the other room, and they didn't know each other. There were like 2 women together and a couple together. And they all went into that room, and I was like, that's interesting, but okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so the first thing she does is she has one of those huge sound bowls that you can stand in. And I've seen them before, but I've never experienced it myself. So I'm like already getting excited. So she demonstrates, and she says, this is how we're going to set the intention for tonight. I want you to stand in it. And as I want you to tune into what your intention is, say it out loud to the altar, and then I will, gong the bowl. And so that you can amplify the energy that you're calling in. Okay, so I volunteered to go first. And like, I knew my intention is to connect with the land. But what comes out of my mouth as I'm standing there in the bowl is, I'm here to ground my light into this land, and I'm here to have you all witness it. And I'm like, as I'm saying it, I'm like, wait, what? And then I have my arms open, and she hits the bowl, and it's just like, whew. So sound is a vibration that you mainly hear up here, and sometimes you can feel it through your body, but when you're in the actual bowl, it rises from the root up through to the crown, and it's just like, oh God. I can't, actually, I'm going to say it kind of feels like the sonic slider, but moving through all systems at once. Okay, so I was just like blown away by that. So I go back to my mat, and everybody else does their intention. And then she says, okay, the first modality that we're going to do is called Ancient Egypt Eye Gazing. And she looks at me, because by that point I had said, she had asked if any of us had sound experience before. And I said, yeah, I have. And then I told her that I do healings. And so she looked at me and she said, have you done eye gazing? And I said, no. And then like, think about this though. Of course I haven't. I'm super introverted. I'm by myself all the time. Like, who would I be doing eye gazing with? And I realized like, I mean, I've had friends come to my space, but we've never done that. So it was totally a new experience for me. And I felt like, okay, well, what's going to happen? And in that, I realized like, because you have to have a partner. Well, all the other people have a partner and I don't. And then I realized, no wonder Richard didn't come. And I, in that moment, knew something was going to happen with me and her. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see, let's see what's going to happen. So we sit down and she says, like, we're going to do one eye at a time. And basically what she describes is that this ancient practice of eye gazing is you sit, maybe it's about a foot from each other, cross-legged, and you focus for 7 minutes on the person that you're partnered with, one eye of that person. So for her, I focus first on her, I guess it would be her right eye. And she said, I'm going to set the music. And when the music stops, then we'll stop. We'll take a break, and then we'll go to the second eye. So 7 minutes on one eye, okay, just staring at that eye. And she's like, this is going to, you can maybe see their aura. You might see spirit animals that come around them. You might, if you're really able to go deep, you might see their timelines. You might see cosmic connections with that person. And I'm just like, wow. Because I'm able to tune into people's energy, but I've never done it like looking in their eye. I've never, without words. Like, and that's the other thing. No words at all. So she sits down, and within 30 seconds, I'm bawling. I am just releasing. And the reason is, what I saw in her eye is myself as a child. Like, she has, and she carries, I didn't say her name. Her name is Leyah. So she carries such a playful, free-spirited energy that I could see myself in her, but I could see that I had been denying that part of myself for a long time. And that's what the tears brought in. So again, there are no words being exchanged, but what I'm downloading is that she's here to show me that part of myself again. And of course, like, I just had created a vision board on the equinox. And one of the things that I have there is 3 women laughing together. And I wanted to bring in more laughter, more playfulness. Sometimes I can be so serious and I don't even know I'm being serious. So when that came through, I was like, okay, so she's showing me this, and she's showing it in myself, right? Like, so I cried with that for a long time because it felt like the most nurturing, I don't even know how to describe it. It's so hard to put these things into words, but it was like I was being witnessed for the different layers of who I can become. Maybe not who I am today, but she saw it in me and was like, I'm going to show you and mirror this to you so you can find it in yourself. And then as I kept looking into this eye, I saw her grow old. And then I saw that we have had many lifetimes together and that she comes from my oversoul. And I was like, what? Like, I'm just like, and then all of a sudden this emotion came over me of, you didn't choose to be here. Everything conspired for you to be here. Look at that. Richard found her. And Richard did research to find her. And she showed up. She was there for me. And I realized, like, this is my anchoring. This is I had the intuition that I was supposed to anchor and connect with the land in Joshua Tree, but I didn't understand that. If you guys go back to listen to the episode that I did about the 144 avatars, essentially this was my moment to anchor completed into the earth. And then I was like, what? And basically, I haven't physically met people that I'm like 100% certain they're one of those anchors of the 144,000. But in this moment, staring into this person's eye, I knew she was. And she then was telling me that each person that is ready to anchor in what I mean by that is like tap into the Earth's grid. It's an initiation. it's something that, at least this is how it was explained to me, it's not something that you do on your own. You are initiated into when you're ready to ground in, to accept that you're like almost like consciously prepared and ready to pull that energy through. And this person has like in her bio, which I'm going to link it below in case any of you do go to Joshua Tree. She carries so many codes with her. She's traveled like all over the world and studied every kind of modality that you can think of. And she has like, I don't even know. I think she's my age, maybe younger. I don't even know. She's ageless, but you can feel that she's holding her center more steady than I've ever experienced in another person. And why? Because she's anchored in. And I'm just like, this is all happening. Like, this is what I'm picking up through her eye. And I'm just like, I go through like laughing and then crying again, and just like the most deep gratitude for everything that she is, and for Richard for planning this for me, and just like accepting the call. And finally the song ends, and I'm just like, holy shit, that felt like, I don't even know. It felt like a lifetime. And so I was like, how am I going to go into it? Her second eye, like what is going to come up of that eye? So she gives us like a minute to kind of regroup, and then we go back in. And in the second eye, right away, I felt like pure light energy moving from my crown through my chakras. And I started shaking. And why I started shaking, like she had a fire going in there. It was warm, and I even had my blanket with me from the van. I was like super toasty, but I started shaking, and I realized like the energy is trying to now that she's activated me, she's showing me again, not saying a word, how to bring that light down through my vessel. And I describe this as turbulence. When your body isn't fully in that frequency yet, there's this agitation. It's like a turbulence that happens. And so there I am, like shaking, and I am freezing. I'm shaking. So she scoots closer to me, and she puts her hands on my hands, and I think to like make, hold me steady as I'm learning how to bring this down. And then she picks up her hand and she puts it right here on my 8th chakra, my thymus, my heart portal. And in that movement, I realized why I was shaking. Like I was trying to pull or allow the energy through the top of my crown down, when she was saying, open up your heart, let it come through your heart. And the moment she did that, I just released it, and then it just flooded through. And then then she showed me how, like, basically, let's see. She helped me to understand that once you are anchored in, there's a fire that's lit from underneath. Like the way I would describe it visually is like if you have your chakras in your root, but underneath you are your roots. Your roots are your ancestry, your past lives, everything that makes you able to stay and ground into this planet. And it's like she lit a fire in those roots and said, now you are here to bring passion and bring this forward here. And I had been getting signs throughout the week that this was coming. Like I've been calling in and connecting with fire energy. And I actually did a search on YouTube to connect with fire energy, and I'm going to link her video below. But essentially the practices were greeting the east, like being there for sunrise and being present for that initial fire that rises in the sky. Another is candle gazing. And these are things that I've practiced before, but as with everything, like practices come and go through our ritualistic experience, and sometimes we're called back to them. And I knew fire was calling. So when I felt that come through of she lit this fire and helped me see that that's where the energy will come from. It's not coming from like, how we think like, how can I get all these things done in a day? She was basically showing me that it's not coming from you. Like the vessel is just the vessel. pull in the energies that are here to support you. Like, for example, the night before, the wind. And now she had lit this fire in my roots. And then she explained to me that when you're anchored in and this fire is lit, you become a full service. Like, it needs to move through you and you need to activate. And I know, like, what is that? Like, I've talked about, I think before, it's not like trying to recruit people or trying to say like, this is the way and there is no other way. But activating someone is, I speak my truth, and in that you find your own. You remember your own. It's like carrying, like what I would say with her, she was so centered in her being that all of these activations that were moving through this simple exercise were codes that I held. So what I realized is that really she's holding so steady, she's able to be a mirror for everything that's ready to come through in this experience for me. And my God, I just like, oh, okay. So I think I'm pretty sure, I hope I didn't miss, but basically that's the gist. She helped me see like that all of this is happening for a reason, that she also received the same activation by her mentor or someone that she was close to. And then from there, you just have to share your light. Like, beyond anything else, nothing else is as important as sharing your light. And I think other than the last thing that I must have known that time was coming to a close, because I just spent the last few minutes like really sending her gratitude, because I've had teachers on this path, yes, but I've never met someone that's connected to my soul. And I felt like, God, I'm just so grateful for this moment. You know, here I've always had experiences, yes, where I go into my own experience. I've never connected with another in that it's almost like it was an amplification of where I can go on my own. So then that time ended, and we then went into a sharing session, and I explained, okay, the other 4 people that were there, they said they had never been to a sound session. And then, of course, she says, like, she's going to go first. But in that, she starts talking, and then she looks at me and says, well, actually, why don't you say your experience? And because, obviously, I had so much move through. And so I'm talking, and I'm going on and on and on. And I was like, and that's just the first eye. And then this happened in the second eye. And I was like, what I realized is that I was activated to understand that opening up my heart and myself to another is where I'm at now. It's my next leap. You guys know I always talk about being so introverted and so afraid and, but look what could happen when you just like blindly leap into this woman's arms that was there to catch me. And I explained to her like that, we have so much connection in this, not only in this life, but in so many past lives and cosmically. And I know you are me. And then I said, and by the way, I did see your aura, because she kind of made a joke of it when she said that in the very beginning. And she looked at me and she was like, you probably can see them without this practice, but that's something that can happen. And then she asked, like, what color was it? And I was like, it was pure white. Literally pure white, because she's pulling in white. Like, that's it. She's light. Okay. So I'm just like, where do you go from there, right? So then she puts us on our mats, and she does like an hour sound session of like, she has all the crystal bowls, but she has like every other instrument you can even think of, like a didgeridoo and chimes and a drum, and just like she's moving around the room, as all sound sessions are. It's a journey. And if you haven't experienced it, please find one that's local to you. It's like waking up every inch of your body into sound, and it's magic. So we went through this process of healing past traumas in our lives. And what came up for me was the connection with my brother and sending love to him and where he is at in his own journey. And of course, I can hold so much light for that, but ultimately I have to hold space for where he's at in his own process. So honoring that is that too. And then I came to this place where my mind started coming in. And I started thinking, like, how am I going to cultivate this relationship with her? Like, obviously, she's in my life. This happened for a reason. And she lives like 2 hours away from me. And I'm thinking, like, I know she's supposed to be in my life. And then I'm thinking, is she the closest anchor to me? Is that why she's my activator? And I'm like going down this path. And then that finally gave way to let it go. Look how she came into your life. Let it go. If it's meant to be, it's going to be. So then once I let that go, then I was able to really enjoy the sound session. So that went on for about an hour. And for me, after this first experience, like nothing could compare to all the downloads that I received through her. But at the end, we did a tea ceremony and connected it with our hearts. And it honestly, like being totally sober was the absolute best experience I've ever had with another healer. So I'm going to leave her information below. Magic. But then once everything is done, I pulled back in. And me pulling back in is, okay, Richard's in the van. It's time for me to go. I gather my things and I'm like, I gave her a hug and I said, I know it will work out and we will be, we'll be in touch. And I let it go. And I, got back in the van and we drove to our campsite and I kind of sat with it for a few days. And yesterday I emailed her or I texted her and I just said like, I don't even know how to thank you in words because what you did for me, I've never had anyone do for me. I've definitely met amazing healers and had amazing experiences, but they've all been like safe spaces that I open up to my own energy. I don't know that I could have seen all of those things were it not for her holding her centered light for me to reflect it. So I try to explain all of that. And I said, I want you to know, like, if there is ever a time that our paths cross, like I live down near San Diego, I just left it at that. Well, she responds and she says, oh, I'm down in San Diego once a week. Let's meet up. And she already invited me to go do she watched the sunset in Encinitas and do a cold plunge into the ocean. I'm like, okay, that's something I've never done before. I've never done a cold plunge. But I feel like she carries this playfulness that is just what I need. And my soul needs to find that groove, like it's not this serious. Like once you connect, like now I feel like, okay, now the fun begins. Like, let's enjoy this. And God, you guys, I could not have planned a more beautiful birthday into myself than this. And I'm kind of wanting you guys to see that our minds don't need to plan it. Everything around us can conspire to make these synchronicities come about in the most beautiful way. And as I sat there explaining what happened to me in those 14 minutes to that group, I'm just bawling. And I said, I didn't choose to be here, but look at the magic that chose me, like look at this. And I even talked about Richard and how I said, he's not a spiritual person, but he knows, like he just knows. And they all were like, oh, he's definitely connected. And I said, oh yeah, he's connected. And I would say he's even more enlightened than I am, but he's chosen not to be conscious of it in this life, at least right now. But my God, that guy, I don't even know. And I share this with him, and I know he appreciates me telling him that I see that in him. But at the same time, like, most of the things that I say are like, he always says, that's over my head. I don't understand, because he wants to understand it from a logical perspective, and none of this is logical, And I think him being into science and medicine, it's hard for him to let go of that way of learning. But my God, this guy, I just am so grateful that he listens to the rhythm of his own heart and his knowingness. And God, I'm so thankful. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and I am going to leave all of her information below. She doesn't have a website. She literally only advertises on Airbnb experiences, and she has thousands of reviews. So I know the magic of her is out there, but she also has an Instagram page, which I will also share with you guys. And there's just such beautiful nuggets of wisdom on there. And just know that for me, this person is activated, centered, and grounded. And I am just in awe to have met her and hopefully start a friendship with us. And thank you guys also for being here. I know that when I connect with you, a lot of you have that same feeling about me, and that you feel like we've known each other forever and that we're on the same journey. And I would say that's part of the same experience. You're feeling that because I'm holding a centered space for you to remember it in yourself, which then it's like, well, yeah, we've done this before. Last time you did it for me, and this time I'm doing it for you. But there's this like web that connects us all. And I just want to mirror that back to you because it's real. Like, it is 100% real, and it's such a beautiful feeling. So that all goes back to discernment. You will know when you are in the presence of someone that's meant to be in your experience and in your awakening, and just follow it. Just follow it. It's such a beautiful, beautiful gift. I'll see you guys next week.